Hey, welcome back to the Spot for Fantasy Footballers. I'm Asa Rehman. It wasn't the best game week 6 for me. You'll see what I'm talking about in today's video as I review both my budget team and my FPL draft team. We'll also look at the waiver 11 side for game week 7 and talk about the best fantasy players for each team in each fixture in the game week 7 preview show right here on the Spot. We have a lot to cover in the Game Week 7 preview video. I just want to quickly remind you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It is the spot for fantasy footballers, especially those in fantasy draft leagues. And we'll get to the fantasy draft content a little bit later on. I'll be talking about the waiver 11 side for Game Week 7, and I'll update you on my FPL draft team. But first, we're talking about the top fantasy assets for each team heading into each fixture for Game Week 7. And the form rating that I'll be using is a 4-game average instead of what the FPL site uses, which is all matches played in the past 30 days. I like the 4-game average for consistency and because it's easy math. So here it is, starting with the first fixture of the game week. And once again, we begin the week with a great matchup. Manchester United hosting Everton. Cristiano Ronaldo, Paul Pogba, the two better fantasy assets for United. Bruno Fernandes would be another one to mention, but he just hasn't been in the best form recently. Ronaldo's been in fine form, though. Just 3 Premier League matches for him so far for 21 points total, an average of 7 in those 3. 12.7 is the price tag, but he's proven to be worth it so far. Paul Pogba has been pretty good. Started out great. 4 assists in the opening match of the season. 3.75 fantasy point average in his last 4, costing you 7.8 for the midfielder. And then for Everton, some really good value plays here. If you're in the market for a value midfielder, in particular, Andrew Townsend on 33 points. He's been very good recently. 6.75 in his last 4, costing you just 5.5. Meanwhile, Abdoulaye Doucouré he's got 38 points on the season. A lot of people talking about Demarai Gray, but Doucouré's been very good for Everton. 6.5 in his last 4 and costing you 5.6, so a good option for you there. On to the next match then, Chelsea versus Southampton. This should be a get-right game for Chelsea after a 1-0 loss to Manchester City last week. Thiago Silva finding his spot in the defensively for Thomas Tuchel in Chelsea recently, so he's seeing more of the pitch. Romelu Lukaku has been on the pitch for a lot of the season since he joined Chelsea, but he just hasn't come through in the last couple weeks. 27 points so far in the season, 4.75 in his last 4, and getting around goal, just not converting recently, and we saw it in the Champions League match against Juventus. Had a couple really good opportunities, one on his left, put over the bar. You expect him to bury those, so he should have some chances against Southampton, and people who have him selected on their fantasy team are hoping he comes through because he isn't cheap at £11.7 million, and he is capable of scoring 1, 2, 3 goals in a match. Maybe it happens against Southampton, but they'll obviously have something to say about James Ward-Prowse. Has been good. Typical James Ward-Prowse through the midfield. Tino Livramento has been excellent in the back for Southampton. A real bright spot for them so far this season. 17 fantasy points. That doesn't really tell the whole story. He's been great all season long, just as a player, as a footballer. 3.5 fantasy points in his last 4, costing you just 4.2, and really helped them pull some positive results against big opponents. The next match we have for you, Wolves versus Newcastle. This should be good. This could open up an opportunity for some fantasy points for some key players. Fernando Marçal has been very good for Wolves in recent weeks. 25 points on the season, 5.5 in his last 4. Jimenez coming on now, finally has that goal, so 16 points on the season. We saw what he's capable of when he is playing last season, so there's optimism there. 3.25 in his last 4. As for Newcastle, Alex Saint-Maximin is the one you want. Saint-Max has been excellent this season. I have had him since day one. His price has gone up to £7 million now. He's averaging 5.5 in his last 4, but he scores or he sets up. He's always active around the box. I think he's a great pickup. Even at £7 million, Sean Longstaff is the next best, most informed player for Newcastle, and that just goes to show the difference and the disparity when you're talking about Newcastle fantasy assets. It's Saint-Max and then everybody else. Saint-Max is the only one you want right now while Callum Wilson is injured. The next match we're going to look at is Burnley versus Norwich. All right, Ben Mee and Ashley Westwood for Burnley. they've been underperforming. They're what you expect, I guess, for your Burnley fantasy assets. I wouldn't recommend either of these players. Westwood's interesting. He might make the waiver 11 team. Stick around for that, see if he does. Averaging 2.25 in his last 4 for Norwich. There's one player, then the rest. And trust me, I know. I've tried a few Norwich assets. Shame on me, tisk tisk. But Timu Puki's the one. If you're going to pick one up, he's probably the one you want. 4.25 in his last 4. 5.9 is the price tag. And then Matthias Norman's the next one I'll mention here. But, he's just come on recently. 7 points in the matches he's played. 2.3, I believe, in the 3 matches. So, maybe he helps turn things around. But I've tried a couple there. I've tried Todd Cantwell, tried Billy Gilmore, and I think I'm done with it. I need to just separate myself from Norwich. We'll see how my team's doing a little bit later on. Let's move on though and break down the next match, and that is Leeds versus Watford. Should be a good one. Rafinha, good news here. We expect him to play. Can't say the same about Patrick Bamford though. So Rafinha expected to play. 28 points so far this season. He's been really good. Thought he might be hurt and missed the last match, so I lost some points there. You see what I'm talking about in a moment. 6.5 for Rafinha. And the other one that I really want to mention in this matchup is Ismail Assar, who's been great for Watford. The midfielder, it's great pace. He's great going forward. And he's showing that he can score and give you some attacking returns as well. 39 points on the season for him. 7 points average in his last 4. 6.3, that's all it costs you. And he was actually on a list for sort of underappreciated players. Can't remember who posted this list. It was on Twitter, and you know what? I'll find it and I'll post it in the description because I love giving credit to people who do the work, and someone really came up with a good list for players that are underappreciated and aren't selected or even talked about as much as they should be. And Sar was on that list. Joshua King is very good as well, so he's one that you could pick up. 19 points for him, 4.5 in his last 4, and costing you just 5.5. You know what? Now that I think about it, it might have been Josh King on that list, but Sar very good as well. Either way, one of these Watford assets was on that list, and yeah, it's worth checking out. So I've talked about it enough. I'll mention it or post it in the description. Give credit where it's due. But yeah, maybe you got some players here and you'll get some return on your investments. Next match we're looking at Brighton versus Arsenal. New Mopai scored in the last match, 31 points so far in the season, averaging 5 fantasy points in his last 4. 6.5 is the price tag. And then Leandro Trossard up and down, similar to what we saw last week from Trossard. And he's got 24 points on the season. Let's switch things over to Arsenal, though, because some really interesting assets for Arsenal. They're coming on recently. Bukayo Saka has been very good, so he's one that you might want to pick up. 7.2 for the midfielder, averaging 5 3/4 in his last 4. But Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang is coming good for you if you had him. You know, not a lot of people did actually. People down on him right now, and he wasn't cheap either. But we've seen what he can do, so it could be interesting and could be one worth picking up. 9.9 last check for Aubameyang, and he's averaging 4.75 in his last 4. Just 20 points so far in the season, so it didn't have the best start, but could be coming on for you now. And if he finds his scoring touch, he can bag goals for sure. We've seen that. Next match we've got Tottenham versus Aston Villa. Son Heung-min, Harry Kane. This is the only two we'll always talk about for Tottenham because they are head and shoulders above the rest as far as fantasy points go. But you wouldn't know it when you look at these stats. Son's been good. Can't deny that. 32 points. Maybe you expect a little bit more. 4.75 in his last 4. 10 million for him. Harry Kane's been very disappointing. This is poor. You don't need me to tell you. You're probably well aware of just how bad he's been, but yeah, when you see it in plain sight, it is awful. 7 points so far in the season. Yes, he missed the first couple of games, but still 7 points, no assists, no goals so far this season. 1.75 in his last 4, and he costs you 12.1. Incredible. Matthew Cash, on the other hand, has been great for Aston Villa. 29 points on the season, 5.5 in his last 4, cost just 5. And I don't usually do this, don't usually mention goalkeepers, but I have to give a shout out to Emiliano Martinez, especially after what he did against Manchester United. United gets the penalty late in that match in stoppage time, and Martinez goes up basically with Bruno Fernandes putting the ball down, points at Cristiano Ronaldo, suggesting Ronaldo should take it. I have to believe that he gets in Bruno's head. Bruno skies over the bar. You don't typically see that from him. If you haven't seen that clip, check it out. It is fascinating, and I love Martinez for it. So kudos to him. That's why he gets mentioned. But you know what? He's been good as well. 4.75 in his last 4 outings. For the goalkeeper, so pretty good for him. But yeah, some other good Aston Villa assets, obviously, as well. We'll touch on those ones next time. On to the next match then. Crystal Palace and Leicester. Some really good fantasy options here, actually, especially for Crystal Palace. People sleeping on these guys. Conor Gallagher and Wilfried Zaha have been in fine form. 32 points for Gallagher, 29 for Zaha, but their form recently has been fire. 7.25 in his last 4 for Gallagher, 6 fantasy point average for Wilfried Zaha in his last 4, and they're both under 7. Gallagher's just 5.7. As for Leicester, it's Jamie Vardy that separated himself, and he's another person that was on that list that I'll be posting in the description. 40 points so far in the season, 8.25, 8.25 in his last 4. That's incredible. Yeah, 10.4 isn't cheap, but at the same time, that's a great return for what you're getting from Vardy, and you expect him to score. We can't be surprised by this. The guy does it year in, year out. Yuri Tielemans, just fine. Meh. Tielemans is just okay. The next matchup we're going to look at is West Ham versus Brentford. Mikel Antonio and Said Benrahma are the two best assets for West Ham, and it's been that case from day one. They're the ones that are giving you returns every week. Antonio with that 4.5 average in his last 4. That's with a 0 where he didn't play and a -1 where he picked up a card. In that average, and he's still averaging 4.5, costing you just 8. He's been incredible. I think those are the only 2 matches he didn't score. I think he's giving you an attacking return in every other match so far this season. Benrahma's been very good, giving you returns week in, week out as well. For Brentford, Ivan Toney was someone that was hyped at the beginning of the season, had a slower start, but starting to come around a little bit for you, averaging 5 points in his last 4, and then Ethan Pinnock came out of nowhere for people, and he's been incredible. So a defender that you might want to pick up. Very good for Brentford. 4.75 in his last 4 matches, 36 points on the season, costing just 4.6. And then the last match of the season is a doozy. It's a beauty. Liverpool hosting Manchester City. Mohamed Salah, the best fantasy player in the game, 57 points. Nobody even close to that. 9.25 in his last 4, 12.6, and worth every penny. Sadio Mane, very good as well, but it just pales in comparison when you're standing next to Mohamed Salah and his fantasy points. But 34 points, pretty good. 5.75, decent as well in your last 4. Just so far back from Mohamed Salah, but so is everybody else. For Manchester City, Joao Cancelo and Ruben Diaz, the defenders, have been the most consistent players for Manchester City as far as fantasy points go. 44 points for Cancelo and 39 points for Diaz, and consistently playing. That's always the question, right? With Manchester City players, who's going to play with Pep Roulette? Well, these two players have been playing, so some comfort in knowing that they'll be on the pitch, and they're very good defensive. This should be a fine match. I can't wait to see how this one turns out. So hopefully you get some fantasy points in this match, whether it's defensively or offensively. There should be some fantasy points in this last one that can maybe rescue your week. We'll see how it goes. Well, the one Liverpool asset I have on my team is Mohamed Salah. Very happy to have him on my team. He was my captain for game week 6, and he came through for me in a big way. Got me 14 points. It was pretty disappointing otherwise. It was a disappointing week for a lot of people, which is why I was slightly above the average at 48 points when the average was 43. I'll take it. St. Max came through as well, and Son got that goal, that consolation goal, that late one that really saved me as well. So I got some performers in that game week 6, but looking to improve the team and addressing the midfield once again. I know I've got some issues defensively, but I'm going to stick to the midfield here, and I'm going to swap out Souček. Wanted to do this for a little while. He's been poor, to say the least. Want to get a similar price point as a replacement. So I'm going to sort this by price and start shopping in that £5 million range and see what I can come up with. There are some interesting options around there, so I want to start looking at that £5 million range. Kovacic for Chelsea has been very good, but I just don't expect him to keep it up. But he's been coming through for them recently. Another good player that we've mentioned already is Andros Townsend, and he's great value. Unfortunately, he's got some tough matchups coming up. Manchester United and West Ham in the next 2 weeks. He's up a little bit after that, so we'll keep an eye on him and keep that one in our back pocket. Maybe come back to it later. Another interesting option around this same price points could be Ademola Lookman. We'll keep an eye on that one and maybe come back to him later. Just haven't seen enough production from Lookman at this point, but I'm hopeful anyway, and we'll see what he does going forward. Said Benrahma, though, has been productive, so let's go with that. And so this would be a straight West Ham swap. Benrahma in for Souček. 6.6 for him, and I think we've got a little bit in the bank even after making this deal. So 0.2 in the bank after making this West Ham swap. Souček for Benrahma. Haven't locked it in just yet. Let me know what you think of it, though, in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter at TheSpot4FF. And a quick reminder that these videos are done in partnership with the Kickoff Coffee Company. Go to the website, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Use the promo code SPOT15 to get 15% off your coffee, your mugs, your merch, whatever you want. Use the promo code SPOT15 to get 15% off everything. Check it out. Okay, I hope that helps you out with some of the decisions you'll be making for Game Week 7. One of the things I don't usually talk about in these videos is the captaincy issue. Let me know who your captain will be for Game Week 7, and if it's something you'd like to see me talk about in these preview videos. The captain topic, something I generally avoid. I'm usually sticking to Mo Salah, if I'm being honest here. But if that's something you want to discuss a little bit more, let me know in the comments below. Or hit me up on Twitter at TheSpot4FF or at Asa Rehman. Okay, now to the draft content. And before we get to the Waiver 11 side, here's how my FPL draft team did in Game Week 6. And it was a good week for my FPL draft team. 39 points and a win. Good to move up 2 spots up to 6th place. And the waiver spot, I have 5th pick. Not bad. Let's see who's available. No one that jumps out to me at this stage. So I think I might sit tight with my squad. Let's get a look at the team. They got me the win, 39 points last week. This is who got it done. Standard 4-3-3 formation. Love that. Actually left some points on the bench as well. Laporte thought he was going to be injured. Probably should have organized that a little bit differently, but got away with the win. Survived the week, and that's after an underperforming front two, or the 2 forwards were underperforming, I should say, and Kane and Lukaku. Don't expect much from him, but Kane and Lukaku need to get more from them. Will make a change, or at least consider a change here. Okay, Gundogan out for a little bit, if you saw that. So I'm going to go ahead and drop and just see if I can upgrade that position. I know a lot of people like to hang on to these sorts of assets for the upside, but I like to be fluid. Unless they're a superstar and you're getting points for them, you're guaranteed points, big points every week. Otherwise, yeah, just be fluid with it. See if you can upgrade, at least get points, right? Because you're going to pick up injuries anyway. So Jesse Lingard, an interesting asset, but not getting enough playing time for me. I like to have players that are featuring for their team and getting regular minutes. Not a whole lot here. I'm going to have to make a waiver 11 side from this group. Douglas Luiz has been pretty good recently, and he's got some okay fixtures coming up. 19 points so far in the season for him. Jared Boehm, 19 as well. None of these guys jumping off the page for me. Sergio Canos looked good coming out the gate. Scored in their opener. First game of the season. It was fire. Hasn't done anything since, though. And I'd like to, find someone I can rely on a little bit more. And there isn't a whole lot to choose from here. Longstaff is there for me to pick up. No, thank you. Let's scroll down a little bit more. Dwight McNeil, I've liked him in the past. He hasn't done a whole lot this season. And look at those fixtures. So a lot of green there, but he's got the City and Chelsea match. But you know what? I'd take it because this isn't one of my top midfielders. He's just a player that, looking to plug and play and pick up points when I can, especially with other injuries. So you're just playing for the right matchup. So let's go ahead and make that move. I want to put that waiver claim in anyway. McNeil for Gundogan. And I think I'm happy with that. I think I'm going to stick with that. I'm not going to make any other moves. Hopefully get another win next week. We'll see how it turns out. And finally, what you've been waiting for, the Game Week 7 Waiver 11 team. There it is in all its glory. All 15 players. The starting 11 in a standard 4-4-2. Ben Foster, the keeper. Really the only available active keeper on waivers. So we plug him into the lineup. And then a couple Aston Villa assets there. And Courtney House and Matt Target. Ademola Lookman, mentioned him briefly earlier. He's available on waivers and a player that I kind of like going forward with Leicester, especially if he sees more of the pitch. So let's get him on the waiver 11 side. Lingard's still available. He was in last week's waiver 11 team. Bringing him back in. Sergio Canio, so let's get him on this team. Not going to pick him up on my actual team. We'll put him on the waiver 11 side. And then up top, Rodrigo and Joelinton, who's been pretty good, actually. Joelinton's been okay. Just hasn't come through from a fantasy standpoint. But when you watch him, he looks like he's getting more comfortable in Newcastle and fits in nicely, actually, when they have St. Max running as a 9 up top. So it'd be interesting to see if he can get on the score sheet this week. And then on the bench, it's Ogbonna, Douglas Luiz, and Iheanacho. Kepa keeping, just because there really wasn't anyone else. So this is it. This is the waiver 11 team for Game Week 7. Okay, that wraps up the Game Week 7 preview video. Can't believe we're already into Game Week 7. Let me know what you think of this video, if there's anything you'd like to see in future videos on the channel. And if you enjoyed it, I know you did, give this video a like. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, ding the bell as well. Thanks so much for your support. Enjoy the rest of your week, your weekend, whatever you're doing. Do it safely. Thanks so much for hanging out at the spot.